everyone. Thanks for watching our Intersection of Design series. We're chatting with business experts about how to make the most out of the contractors you hire, why the best ideas come from collaboration, and how your workflows can be adjusted to make the most out of the people you hire. So today I'm joined by Amber Housley. She's a marketing expert and a retreat planning expert, and she has nearly 2 decades, I think, of knowledge as a marketer and a business owner. A lot of expertise there. So thanks for joining me, Amber.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. So tell me a little bit first, let's set the stage. What is your job? What do you do for people?
Yeah. What I do is I provide smart marketing strategy alongside a lot of a dose of encouragement and cheerleading. So I can truly help women-owned businesses implement marketing strategies that grow their business or even create their business. And then I also support them on the side by showing them how their business doesn't have to be all consuming. So I like to go and really create that joy-filled lifestyle alongside this growing business. That's kind of my sweet spot.
I feel like it's a sweet spot for everyone because everyone's craving that now. They're realizing that the hustle life just does not work.
No.
Is that what you mean when you say smart marketing? What is smart marketing?
It's like getting really specific on what your goals are and where you want to grow your business. One of the big things about my brand is about creating your own success story. And it came out of just years of coaching clients of, hundreds of women. And a lot of them were chasing goals or success stories of influencers or other people online or in the business space. And then, that left them feeling empty, left them feeling like, oh, I'm never going to make it, right? And this is consuming my whole life here. So, where's the balance here? How can I actually, take the little time that I have and make it work towards things that are actually going to help move the business needle instead of it being just all consuming and feeling scattered and all over the place.
I love that because I know that when I first started my business and you were there cheerleading me on the side the whole time, I got really disillusioned because I started off thinking, oh, I can do things differently. There's a need here that's not being met. And then I felt like I had to just do what everyone else was doing. And it really turned me off from business for a long time until I realized that I didn't have to do it that way.
Right. And I think it's about really when we talk about creating your own success story, really that's about going internal and realizing, okay, what motivates me? What inspires me? What are my core values? Or what do I really want to deliver in this world? And really stand in my own identity rather than everybody else's.
Yes, which is what you should be doing as a business owner anyway, when you're determining your whole brand and your company values.
Yes.
That's always what we start with when we do our branding projects is what's important to you? What are your values? What are you trying to communicate to people? What makes you different that you feel people are craving? And let's embrace it instead of trying to be like everyone else.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So on that note, what does branding mean to you? I know it's a big buzzword.
It is a big buzzword. And I think that the people that I work with, the clients that I have, they do tend to lean towards the visual side. They're like, okay, I get it. It's the logo. It's, the typefaces and fonts. It's the colors and all those. And that's great and all. But to me, it is so much more than that. I do think it is a lifestyle. It is if your person were to go, I always think of houses and stuff. If you, go into a house, sometimes I've rented Airbnbs for some of our retreats. And I'm like, oh, if Amber Housley was a beach house, this one right here, this is the Amber Housley beach house. And so I just like to think about how it's more of a lifestyle. It's messaging, it's words, it's so many different things than just the actual, here's my logo, or here's, when we used to have business cards back in the day, right? It's actually so much bigger than that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I agree. That's why I'm really excited we're doing this series because I think that something that gets missed when people start hiring the people onto their team is they think, oh, I just need a logo. I just need colors. I just need something to put together and put out there. But there's no smart strategy there. There's nothing that determines how every other branch of their business should act and should sound. How does design inform copy, and how does design inform your client experience and the physical things that you produce and the way that you make people feel? So yeah, I feel like branding is so much bigger like you
I
said.
love that. I think one of the exercises that just made me think of is that when a couple of years ago, I sat down and wrote the manifesto for our community of women.
Yeah.
And I think like when we wrote the manifesto, that really became a really good roadmap and North Star as I made more decisions in branding, as I made more decisions in even the offers that we created. I'd always go back to the manifesto and be like, okay, does this meet that? Does this still feel aligned here with the brand? Because if it doesn't, then we gotta, consider some other options. And so I think sometimes it even could be like words that you've written out in your mission statement or a manifesto or any of those things too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting because I love the manifesto, but one thing that I think people and business owners get stuck on is they write one piece of what's supposed to be their brand story or their brand like institutional knowledge. And a couple of years later, they say, well, I want to change it. So what's that missing piece there, especially when you wrote your manifesto? What clicked so that you're not going back 2 years later and saying, we need a new manifesto?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting you say that because I do believe like even myself right now, I do feel like I'm like, starting to shift a little bit in my messaging and how I want to serve people. And that's normal and natural. Like we're human beings that are constantly evolving and changing. And so I don't expect my business to always stay the same as I was, a couple of years ago when I wrote the manifesto. But I find sometimes usually like we're thinking we need some kind of drastic change, how it doesn't fit. Like yesterday, I was literally having a conversation with another team member about it. And she even kind of said, she's like, maybe this is like a time for a rebrand. And I'm like, maybe, and I thought about that for a minute. I went to bed. I woke up this morning and I'm like, this actually isn't that different. This is actually still fits in our same mission of thriving businesses and joy-filled lives. It just might be heavier on one side or the other. And so it doesn't have to be like a drastic, like I need to like strip it all down and go back to the bones.
Yes.
You can actually just adjust a little bit.
That is something that I really like about what we've done with your brand and the way that you've kind of modeled your business is that since it is based off of a lifestyle, there's so much flexibility and you've got this giant range, but it still very much looks and sounds and feels like Amber Housley, but sometimes it's a little brighter, sometimes it's a little springy, sometimes it's based on seasons and sometimes it's based on, something else, but it all kind of falls into this brand environment that looks and feels the same.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. That's why I feel good when I woke up this morning. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need a new haircut. I'm okay.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's fine to get a new haircut, but at least for brands, I feel like if you can stick with what you've got for the longest amount of time.
Yeah. And just do like little adjustments, like little zhuzhes here and there.
Exactly. Little arms. We're just like creating this multi-armed creature. Okay. So tell me, when you are working with your clients and when you're looking at your own team, what are the roles that you want to fill and like how does that influence what you're able to do?
Yeah. Couple of things. Like one, I've had the opportunity and experience to be on lots of different teams when I was working in other creative businesses, whether I was an employee or a consultant, and then as I moved into my own teams. And so like, I feel like I've seen the whole run of show.
Yes.
and just from my own background, I've played different roles on those teams. So like I've been integrators and marketing directors. Like I've been in charge of, sales forecasting and project management, right? And the marketing, even writing content. So I feel like I've worn all the hats. So now I have a good understanding. And so I find that most of the clients that I work with, like kind of the couple of areas that I feel like they have the most needs are project management of some sort, of needing a person to move the pieces, unless that's something that comes like natural to them. That does come natural to me. And in some seasons, I'm really good at it. And some seasons, no, I'm horrible at it. Make somebody else in charge and making sure everything like meets the deadlines and gets things done. But I think of project management, I think of a content manager / copywriter, someone who's helping with messaging and writing. And then I am thinking of a brand designer. Like those are kind of the core ones. I think also probably in there, if you're not the one that's doing things, you do need some kind of marketing executor. Like you need a marketing manager or coordinator that actually is getting everything out to all of the platforms and getting all the things in front of the people that need to see it.
Yes, 100%. I think that's actually interesting is a lot of business owners I've noticed have been in charge of doing everything for so long that when they do start handing individual specializations off to contractors, they kind of forget that there needs to be this overarching strategy and there needs to be communication, because for so long they didn't need it. It was just all internal in one like single person. And so that just really often gets missed. And I think that it's part of the education that doesn't often get handed off to contractors. Do you notice that?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like, I think that's like the biggest thing I've always had to tell people is like, they can't read your mind. They cannot read your mind. You have to like get it all out there. And I think like I'm a person that I go through seasons and stuff, but on when I'm in a good, healthy state, I would say like where I'm like on top of everything, I am an over communicator. I was like, I know you already have this in Asana and you have directions, but I'm going to go over here on Voxer and add a whole bunch more color and like tell you everything that's in my brain, or just give you little updates along the way. Like, I think that goes a long way. I'd rather over communicate than under communicate any day.
I have to tell you, that is my favorite part of working with you, is I always have a very clear sense of what's going on with you as like the business owner brain and how you envision things happening and like moving, and how this one puzzle piece can turn into something 6 months down the line or 2 years down the line. And you've also been really great about giving everyone on your team access to your entire project management system. Like, I can go into a project and know who's working on copy and who I need to tag about copy edits, or if there is, a webinar happening before I design a lead magnet. And that's, I have so much context and so much information. And I think that, business owners are probably thinking, I've thought this before too, I don't want to give them too much information. I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want them to think that.
I'm like, let them edit. Let them decide, how much they want to participate or not. But like, you're right on target. Like, I'd rather just hear you. You see the whole picture, the whole playbook. And then, when your part comes into play, you already have a context of what's happening.
Yes. Okay. How have you seen that influenced your workflow? Like, have you noticed changes since you started being more open? I mean, you've probably always been this way.
Yeah, I've always been this way, but I can see when I'm not doing it. So like when I was saying, when I was joking earlier, I'm like healthy or unhealthy, like, cause sometimes I can go through periods where I need rest, right? Like my brain needs rest and I need to dream and think of new opportunities. And so I will silo myself, right? And, kind of go quiet for a while. And then I think like the team's like, whoa, what's Amber cooking up over there? Like, is everything okay? Is everything good? And it's just me not explaining like, hey, like, this is where I'm headed. Like, this is what I'm thinking. And so that's always a good invitation for me to go and make sure like, oh, I need to be like still communicating that like, hey, the lights are on here. I'm just dreaming up something new before we go into this next season, and then it'll be all hands on deck.
Yeah. Okay, that is really interesting and tell me more about your process, because I always think about things happening from marketing down. Like, before we can do anything, we need this marketing strategy. We really need to know where we're going. Is that kind of how you envision the workflow as well?
I do. Like, I am always thinking of, like, what's the 6 or 12 month picture? And what do I want each of these months to look like? Like, just kind of good old fashioned marketing planning, like okay, like here's the time we have available. What do we want to get done? Like, what are the key projects or the things we want to create or bring to market in this time period, like at the higher level, and then go and work our way down to go and disseminate all those projects or the things and get them moving forward.
At what point do you bring in your contractors to be a part of that conversation, or do you make the plan and then just hand it off?
I think I've done both. And like, I don't think that there's like a winner in either way, because there's sometimes like, we did our very first like in-person team retreat where we did it. And it was so good to just, like be in the room together, get on the same page with like what we wanted to do this year, right? And get everything kind of mapped out at a very high level. But then, you get home and, life happens, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then like, I have to be the editor to say, okay, we actually can't do all 12 things. We can do 6 of them, and this is what's realistic. And so, but I find value in that. I find value still at the high level of bringing the team in to get input. But then also I have to remind myself that I am the CEO of the business. I am the one, like as the visionary and as the person, like in my particular brand, I am the face of it as well. It is Amber Housley on the door. And so I have like a certain responsibility of like what my vision is. And so I can kind of go back and forth of like how much input I want at certain times. And before I kind of lean on my own genius or lean on like what I know is best, I'll get everybody else's input and then I'll kind of be the deciding factor of what happens and when it's going to happen.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Do you ever find that contractors are either inserting themselves where you haven't asked for input, but they have a lot of feedback for you? Like, how do you respond in that?
I haven't found, well, I've created a culture where I do ask for input. I mean, that's just our culture here. I'm always asking. And so I may take what you say and like do nothing with it. Like, I'll be like, okay, that was nice to hear your opinion. But it's good for me as like the business owner to hear it, because then it only solidifies like what I feel like yes or no even more. Like they can say something. They're like, well, actually, I wasn't thinking that. And I'm like, well, I am. And now that you said it, I really am. So I think it's like maybe as like kind of personal growth for a business owner, like hearing this, like how I do receive so much feedback of just knowing you don't have to like agree on the same feedback. You don't have to, it's just good because it can only just like make it more strong of an opinion for you of like what direction you want to go on or what decision you want.
Yes.
Yeah. Or you can like, or they might give you something where you're like, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. You're right. We should not do that, Yeah.
Has there ever been a time when, you have this community of feedback, but has there been a time where you are like really having to pull at someone to give you the information and the feedback that you need?
I haven't found that. And maybe it's just because I've worked with really quality people and that sounds very Pollyanna here. Like, oh no, I've never had a problem with that. I mean, I could say there are seasons like when some of the, because my team is fully contractors, I think like where they have other life things going on, or they have other clients or business, and they might not be as tuned in or tapped in, or, as interested in giving opinions. They just want to do the work. Right. And so I just kind of respect that, because I know that that's how, we're all running businesses. And so there's gonna be times when we have energy to devote to a client, and there's other times when we won't have that extra energy.
I have definitely felt that, and I've appreciated that.
Yes. But I think that's like part of like the communication process, and like having that relationship where you can like, be able to Voxer or like be able to have some kind of communication one-to-one where you can be like, hey, is everything going on? Like going okay? Or, just knowing those like other nuances that could be going on in their lives or their businesses.
Yes, that's something that I think that some business owners are hesitant to create a team out of their contractors. And sometimes that respect for them having their own businesses and their own lives and the boundaries is often taken to heart too much. And so I have found that there are some business owners that I've worked with who are afraid to reach out and afraid to create team meetings and to create that kind of relationship, just because I think that the term contractor kind of has this like ugly connotation with it, where you're not supposed to ask too much and you're not supposed to get them invested, but it should be the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from the very beginning, like whenever I hire someone, like I've learned over the years, because I've worked with so many different people, no one sticks around forever in most cases, unless you're Nicole and Amber Housley.
We're bonded.
We haven't, it's been years and years. I mean, pretty soon it'll be like a decade.
Oh my gosh.
I've learned, like, you go into these relationships, like people, they're going to grow. Like that's the whole goal out of it, is that like when they come and they work with you and your team, like I want people to grow. Like I want them to get better at their skills. And if that means that like we won't be a fit someday, like that's okay. But the time we have together is going to be really good. Right. And beneficial and mutually like beneficial for both of us. And so I think like going into that and thinking like, hey, they're your team. Like you want to invest the time in it. You want to invest your relationship and friendship in that. So you do work like a team, then you are going to get better results on the end.
Yes. That's something, if we can like talk about our own relationship for a little bit, that's something that I really loved. Is there have been times where working with you, I've said, I'm tapped out. I have zero ideas. I'm going to need a little extra help.
Yeah.
And there have also been times where I feel like I'm on my A game. Things are like pumped out really quickly. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like reassuring to me to know that you completely understand that. And that's always been very clear to me. But I also think that it does a lot for me as a contractor to know that you trust me and that there is like just that mutual respect there, because I think that contractors overall always feel a little bit insecure. So.
Yeah, no, I could see that, like where they're not doing enough, or yeah, I mean, I think about it because I've been on the contractor side when I've been a consultant for some teams. I don't really do it as much anymore, but yeah, we're always like, are they happy with me? Or am I doing it? Am I doing it? Like, they totally want to get rid of me. Like, there's just days when those little thoughts will creep into you.
Yes, it happens all the time. Even for teams that I've been a part of for years, I'm like, they're in a team meeting right now, and I bet they're talking about me.
No.
But part of that is the communication. Part of it is like you turn in your tasks for years and you don't get any feedback, or you're like asking for things from them and like really pulling and not getting quite what you need. And so you're just always wondering if it works or if it doesn't work.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think it always goes back to if the contractor has a bigger picture understanding of what the business is doing and like what the goals are, or what, what all this is for, it just helps them feel like, I think, security, where they're like, oh, okay, like this, they're not going to just get rid of me. Like I can see there's a lot more projects down the pipeline or whatever it may be. So like, I think that's just bringing them into the bigger picture is probably the answer to that.
Yes. And that security means that the contractor can invest in you as well. Like I want to make sure that if I am providing you with feedback or giving you advice on something that could be done to improve a workflow 6 months down the line, that I'm going to be here to see it through and that we're like investing in the same things together.
Yeah.
And I hope that all contractors are providing that kind of expertise and advice, no matter what the relationship is, unless it's really toxic. But it does do a lot over a long period of time to kind of get that mutual feedback and some of those words of affirmation, but also just
I think
the context.
The other thing you can do are, kind of check-ins with each other. Like maybe if it's quarterly or monthly, like outside of like what you already need to do for the job, but it's more of like getting on a call and saying like, are you happy? Am I happy? Like, are we still good? Like, is there anything we could do different? Or, maybe that's once a year or annual, whatever it is, like, I think that can also help too, to add like a little formality around it.
Yes, that's something that I've learned in the past couple of years that we've needed to do with all of our clients, because this is probably a result of the pandemic, but I think also a result of people trying to streamline their workflows so much, is cutting all meetings. Definitely understand that meetings have a bad rap and they're not all appropriate, but you do need to check in with your people and you need to get that FaceTime in.
Such a good reminder, because you're true. Because like lately I had been like, where it's just because it became overwhelming, like it became too much. And then now we've gone like to the side where it's too slim. And it's like, okay, how do we find that like happy little medium? Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think the vacillation is okay, because in the end, it's all going to average out to being what it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, and I think too, is like we found in our own relationship that like it worked better when we were one-to-one versus on the team, because you can get what you need about what's happening in the team by just going through Asana and seeing all the projects. Like you're tapped in already, or just being on our Voxer thread for the whole team. You kind of have a pulse of what's going on. But when we have our one-to-ones, we're able to just like talk specifically about like just design or just marketing or things that we have going on. And it's more like helpful, I think.
Yes. And I think that is also a chance where you get to come to the table and say, I have this idea. I didn't put it on Asana. I don't even know if it's possible, but what are your thoughts?
That's my favorite part about our relationship, is like me going and coming like, here's my idea, Nicole. What do you think? What can we do with this? I've got it past the first hurdle of me saying, this is a good idea. Okay. Next hurdle is like, how do we actually execute on this? Like, how can this look in the big picture of everything else we have? Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of your strength as a designer, is that you do have that strategy, like part of your brain that is activated, that not every designer has. Like, I will say that.
Oh, well, thank you. It's probably from working with you for so long.
But I think that's like, I think like if I could tell designers, brand designers, like what I wish more of them had is they understood like the other like scope of what happens in marketing, like understood like it's not just the design part and having to design these pieces for print or web or wherever it needs to go, but actually understanding where it fits in the whole picture, because that's going to affect all kinds of things. If you understand how a sales marketing funnel works or how a launch works for a program or whatever it may be, you're just going to bring so much more to the table than just saying, yeah, I could design that.
Yes, I completely agree. And that's why I often am begging business owners, like, share your entire Asana. Don't just give me one little project that says design and you're giving me a little task here and there.
Yeah.
Give me access to everything, because that way I can see what's happening this month. Do I need to make this one promo that I'm working on really stand out? Or is there something bigger that I need to build up to? Or is this something that might repeat in 2 months? Is it going to repeat quarterly and I need to make it more of a sub brand? There's so much context that informs what I can do to make things so much better and so much more usable for someone.
Yes, yes. And then we're happy on our side.
Good. Okay, one more question that I want to ask you is, have you ever had to rework something entirely because of design feedback? It usually doesn't happen that way, but has that ever happened to you?
No, it doesn't usually happen that way. Like, I think that if it has happened, like, and I can think of like where I got something where I'm like, oh, that's not really what I had in mind, like for X, Y, and Z. It's because I didn't communicate it enough. Like, I think that's, it's like on me, not on the designer. I take full responsibility for, and I do think I'm a person that like just tries to over inform, like, here's this idea, here's that. Or for the example too, is if you didn't get everything, like you were backed against a deadline and you had to design because you were told you had to design this, like there was nothing, but you actually didn't get approved copy or like final copy and messaging, right? Or actually what the output needed to be. Like I've learned that over the years of how like specific we should be, because you can't read our minds of what we need, of how many versions of something we need, all of the sizes, or where they're all going to be, right? Because all of those things will influence your design, all of the messaging, like there's just so much that goes into it. And so I think that's what would happen if we had to rework things.
Yes, I've seen that happen many times. And a lot of it is just because business owners are swamped.
Yeah,
so
just moving so fast. I think that's what it is. So it's that slowing down part is probably what needs to happen on everybody's part.
Slow down, try to get a project manager if you can.
Yes, a good writer, or you write. Like that's the other thing I'd say is like with the content and copywriting piece of it, some of that does come naturally to me. Some of it doesn't. But after this many years of a business, like we have a lot of content, like we have a lot of things to pull from. And so I think that also can go in the design process. Like once you get something going really good with a brand designer, like that opportunity to reimagine things you already have from the past. Like, and we've been doing that in more recent years of like, let's work smart, like let's work smarter, not harder. Like, what are things we've done that we loved? Like they were great. Like, let's bring those back and reuse those and repurpose and all the things. So yeah, I think that's worked out really well for us. Our big library we now have.
Yes. And so many business owners have that, but I think that comes with maybe the onboarding process is don't just tell me about your team and what you're working on in the future. Tell me what you've done in the past. So I have this institutional knowledge where I can go back and dig for things and I know where to find things. I don't have to ask you for stuff constantly, or if I'm missing something, I know where to get it, or I can fill in the pieces for you.
Yes. So good.
Thank you, Amber. Do you feel like there's anything else that business owners should know about this process or where marketing and design intersect?
I think that the more that we can get curious about the other person's responsibilities, the better that we both can be. Like we spoke a minute ago about how I love it that you know so much about marketing, you know so much about strategy, and that influences our conversations and our design outputs, right? And so me on my end, I can get more curious on the design process, or I'm always out there looking at new things and like saving them and cataloging them. So I feel like I can come to the table with actual like examples, like, hey, like when I mean this is like really literally like what I mean, right? Like I think that has worked really well. And so I think like you could do that as well. So then you're not trying to read my brain again.
I agree. Okay. There's so many good takeaways from this, but that is another one is there's no stepping on toes when you have that kind of relationship with someone. I am not offended when you bring design inspiration or you tell me exactly what you want. It makes my job easier. And it means that I can spend my time playing around with something totally different,
Yeah.
or playing around with the layout when you know exactly what you want the pattern to look like. So having that relationship, building that rapport with people means that you can just spend time collaborating and making things better and not offending people.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Amber. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.